Welcome to the Unapologetic Entrepreneurship podcast, where we believe that as entrepreneurs, we get to decide what our business and our life looks like.
And we get to be unapologetic about it.
You're your own boss, so why are you waiting for permission to do things your way?
Here, we ditch the shoulds. No more building a business that looks good on paper but feels bad in your body.
No more following someone else's strategy just because it worked for them or chasing someone else's version of success.
I'm Delia.
And I'm Joana, and this is not just another business strategy podcast.
We are going so much deeper.
We'll be talking about identity, purpose, our inner worlds, and designing a business around the life you actually want to live.
Let's get into it.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Unapologetic Entrepreneurship podcast. Today's episode is actually inspired by a listener, a question that they sent in. Delia, do you want to read it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had a message saying they came across this podcast and she says, I know that you, recently pivoted with your career and I'm currently trying to figure out my purpose and it's been really frustrating. I recently started a new business, but I'm struggling to find meaning and passion in it. Ooh, such a great question.
And so much to unpack, right?
So much.
Purpose, meaning. In this episode, we're going to dismantle that question and we're going to explore whether is purpose found, is it built, or is it a modern day trap? But first, maybe let's look at why more people than this listener might be feeling this, right? Because this is something that me and you have talked about, right? What is our purpose? What brings us fulfillment? How did we get here?
And I think it's such an important question because we spend so many hours of our day working. And I think when we don't feel like we have purpose or meaning in our job, it can lead to us feeling unsatisfied. I'm frustrated and we wonder what it's all about, right? Like, what am I doing this all for? Like, I think that having purpose or meaning in our work can lead to a greater satisfaction. So I think that's why it's important. We all know that, right? We all know that our time here is limited and that we want to leave a positive footprint, right? We want to leave
make
and
it
help.
count.
Yeah.
But if we, I was thinking about this a lot. And if we look at human history and we think back to like our ancestors, they got born into their purpose, right? They didn't really have the luxury of choosing what their career would be or what they'd get to do with their lives or the impact that they leave behind at scale. And there are few things that have happened in modern day society that have led this question to be so prominent in our minds, right? So if we think about things like, first, like our basic needs have been met, right? So we're no longer, at least hopefully for all of you listening, you're no longer hungry. You have a roof over your head. Like if you think of Maslow's triangle of hierarchy of needs, we're focused now at the top, which is self-actualization, because we've got all the other basic needs met. And work is becoming our identity, right? We're trying to extract like that purpose from work. The other thing is that like choice has exploded. So you can now be anything you want. You could do anything you want and be unapologetic about it, right? And comparison has gone global, right? You were talking about this before we started recording, Delia, about like the fact that now we could like scroll on our phones and just see what everybody else is doing and the impact they're making. And now we're comparing ourselves. Like, is our life being as meaningful as them? Is our purpose as dignified as theirs? And are we making as big an impact as we could be? Like, are we fulfilling our potential? Like, why are we here on this earth? Kind of like existential questions.
Right. And not only are we seeing what other people are doing and questioning our own worth and our own purpose, but think about the hours we're spending doing that are taking us away from things that might be leading us to helping us find our purpose. 10, 15 years ago, we were not on our mobile phones 4 or 5 hours a day. And so I'm not surprised we're in a slightly existential crisis when not only are we constantly being reminded of what other people are doing, but we're using our time to do that instead of doing what sets us alive, that I think, can lead into finding purpose.
Yeah. So how has your relationship been to this question over time? How has it changed for you, Delia?
So I would say I have always been able to find purpose in what I do in its own ways. So I'll give you like 3 different jobs and 3 ways I found purpose. Just, if you're listening, this might help you look at purpose a different way, right? I've never been a doctor. I have never saved lives. I have never been that vet or had a hero's job, right? So when I was a journalist, I used to feel that I was doing my bit by serving and finding out the truth and exposing anything that needed to be exposed. Especially as a political journalist, we uncovered some right scandals. So I felt like my purpose was contributing to democracy and to helping people know the truth. And sometimes my purpose was giving a platform to voices that needed it. Like, I ran a number of campaigns at the newspaper. I ran a campaign about domestic violence. And so I was giving a platform to that super important subject, which has always been very important to me. I ran a campaign to get the city fit because we had an obesity problem. And so I was able to jump on board of these like kind of campaigns and give people a voice. My next job was in travel, right? And I have to admit, I had a bit of an identity purpose crisis because I was like, I felt that journalism was more obviously purposeful. Suddenly here I am organizing luxury holidays around Asia. I mean, that felt so bougie and so not purpose-filled. So then I found purpose by supporting charities. So in every country I worked, I had a charity and we would give a percentage of our profits to charity. So that was really, really important to me. I would do articles on the charities. I do blogs on them as well. So that felt really good. We would sometimes ask our travelers to make additional donations and maybe go and see the work that charities were doing if that felt appropriate socially. Wasn't appropriate for all of them. And so that was cool. And then I thought about the joy that you have on a holiday as a family, like just like that childhood memories that are being made or marriages that are potentially saved by finally getting 2 weeks on holiday together. And I thought about some of the small villages. I worked really hard to take people off the beaten track, and we worked with like sustainable village projects, and I knew that the money was going into good hands as well. We supported all local and boutique hotels. So this job that was bougie, luxurious, and on the face of it, purposeless, I was able to find a huge amount of purpose in different ways. And then the last one, and I'm going to throw this question back over to you, is when I was working as a copywriter. Initially, again, I was like, oh, this is sales. Sales feels icky. Sales doesn't feel purpose-filled. And it sat a bit uncomfortably with me. I'm helping people make more money. How is that fulfilling my life purpose? After a little while in the industry, I realized that I felt so much purpose with clients that were making the world a better place. They were either coaches that were helping women grow their confidence. I've talked before about like my client, Arthur Brooks, who's a happiness professor. He's literally making people happier. He is bringing joy to the world. And then what I found was I would like jump on their bandwagon. And I became so passionate about their purpose that the idea that I could help amplify their reach and actually have bigger impact meant that I got to be a little cog in the wheel of their purpose. So anyway, I say all those 3 examples because I hope if you're listening, you'll see how purpose can come in so many different ways. It doesn't always come in this very big, obvious, grandeur, I'm saving hundreds of lives way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you, Joanna? Like, how's your journey been for purpose in your career?
Well, so I remember when I started my business back in 2014 was around the time that Simon Sinek's TED Talk went viral, Start With Why, which is all about like finding your why. And I remember that really annoying me and making me feel like I was a really selfish person because I was like, I just started my freelance journey. And my why is that I want to be able to travel and work from wherever and meet cool people and take all these online courses and learn. And that felt really selfish. And I started to feel really bad about myself whenever I'd like think about, okay, no, let's sit down, let's do the exercise again. Like every year I would try to like, what's my purpose with like this design agency? Like, like what's the grand vision of how we're impacting the world? And I struggled with it because I just wanted to be happy. I was just like doing it as I was enjoying the work because I love design and I was enjoying the fruits of the work, which enabled me to like travel a lot and learn all these things and meet all these people. So I felt like, I'm like, I'm really happy and fulfilled at work, but I don't feel like I have a purpose. And then I started to realize that through doing that, I was inspiring a lot of people. And some friends were coming to me and they were like, "How did you do that? You seem so much happier now. Like, I love what, like, you're achieving all these things. Like, can you help me?" And before the Ambitious Creatives, I would actually have conversations with friends and help them like see their potential and quit their job. And I started to feel like, maybe that's my purpose, to help people see their potential, to help people grow their business. And so, that's how the seed of the Ambitious Creatives was planted, and we start growing it. And at one point, we have like 60,000 people on our email list. We have 40,000 people on the Instagram. And I'm thinking, now I'm making all this impact, but I'm not feeling as fulfilled and as connected
Ooh.
as before. And I'm definitely not, there were points where I'm like, this is not bringing me the happiness and fulfillment that I thought it would. Like being a mother, that filled that bucket
Yeah.
overflowing. Like I get so much fulfillment and sense of purpose in bringing my two kids up. And so I started to think like, okay, well, now I thought I had found this work that has a purpose that I think is a great purpose. Like I want to keep, don't get me wrong, I want to keep helping inspire people to live their best lives. Like that does light me up. But the scale of that I reached, it didn't bring me any more happiness than having helped my best friend quit his job.
Yeah.
Because through those one-on-one conversations, I was feeling much more connected with them
Yeah.
and feeling like it's almost like I was feeling the energy transfer. I was feeling like the conversations, I was feeling my inspiration being transferred onto him and like feeling how that was setting him alive and me alive and, like that connection, that presence. And so I think like one of the lessons that I've learned about purpose that is that scale doesn't necessarily mean you're going to feel more passionate about it or more fulfilled by it.
I love that.
Yeah. What does that make you think about?
Yeah, that's incredible. And I've been reading a book by Dr. Arthur Brooks, who I just mentioned, and he actually says that. He says that studies have been made that show impacting one person. So he gives the example of charity. If you were to give to, say, one person and see the change that your money makes on that one person's life, it is more satisfying and gives a greater sense of purpose than if you were to give the same amount of money to a really worthwhile charity that that money is helping even more people. So I think this is a really, really key point, that like purpose and meaning doesn't have to be a numbers game, and it can actually be more satisfying on that more intimate, lower one-to-one level.
Yeah. And I think this search for purpose, I wonder if it's like I not to jump to conclusions, but I'm starting to think more and more, is it like a modern day trap? Like you have to find your purpose, but are we really instead just looking for connection?
Yeah, because
'Cause
we're starved of it.
yeah. Because as like you were saying, when you're helping one person, I remember when we had a full-time nanny, she wanted to like drive a car and explore Portugal, but she couldn't because she didn't have a salary. So we're like, okay, well, let's put you on a salary instead of paying by the hour. And because of that, she was able to then buy a car, and like then she could see herself having a family, and then she had her own child, and like that felt so, I don't know if this sounds like really superficial, but like, it felt like I was contributing in such a big way to her life. And the same way she was contributing to mine, because she was taking care of my child as if it was her own. And the gratitude I would feel when I'd leave the house and I knew she was giving it like all her love to him. It felt really good to reciprocate that. And that's not really, I guess that's not really purpose, but it filled me up more than maybe like helping 1,000 people on a free webinar get closer to their goals. Like at least I could feel the effects.
Yeah, 100%. I think that makes so much sense. You can feel, you can see the effects. And you mentioned their connection. That was somebody who you were seeing every day, and aside from actually helping them with that salary, you're also deepening a bond and a connection between you and her, between your child and her. And that is so important. And I think in this world we're living in now, we are more cut off and more isolated than ever. More and more of us are working from home. Like, we know that in the freelance community, a lot of people feel lonely.
Yeah.
And they don't have that community, that kind of like water cooler culture
Yeah.
where you're like chatting to your colleague and having some banter about something whilst grabbing a coffee. And connection gives you purpose as well, because these small interactions with people, like, I don't know about you, but if I've had a conversation with someone and I have made them laugh, or I know that I just helped them work through something small, like, right, just a little chit chat. Maybe they just had an argument with their husband last night, and we chat about it a bit, and I can see their spirits lift as they walk away. That gives me purpose. Right? From these micro conversations where you feel like, and like, I've got two thoughts coming in at the same time, but you feel like you are making a positive impact in somebody else's life, no matter how small it is. And that reminds me of one of the things you told me about your design studio when we first met. So for those of you listening who don't know, when I first met Joana, Joana became my client, right? So I was writing copy for you, and I got Joana to fill out a intake form about her business and her purpose, and I remember, and your values. And I remember you saying that at Gift Design Studios, your primary goal, or one of your key goals, was that, and I'm going to butcher this, you might have to correct me, every interaction you had with someone, what was it? Will you tell me what was it?
Yeah, that was like one of our, I would say, values. Like, every interaction we have with someone, even if they don't become a client, we need to leave them better off than before they entered the conversation with us.
Yeah. I mean, that is incredible. I read that and I had goosebumps as I read it.
Really?
Yeah, because I think that I feel emotional. I feel like that's what purpose is, right? Like, how can we be just having really small micro moments with everybody we meet and leave them feeling better off than before they interacted with us? God,
yeah, well,
start crying
to me,
on the podcast.
to me, it was just like good customer service. You know, it's like, I don't want people to have a bad experience with Gift Design Studios. If they can't afford us, I want them to still leave feeling inspired about where their business is headed, and maybe armed with a couple of freelancers they can connect to, and maybe some tips on like how to pick the right freelancer, since we can't help them. If we were going to have to say no to a timeline, I still wanted them to feel good about that, and how like reframe that as a positive, like, okay, maybe it's gonna have to wait a little bit, but aren't good things worth the wait? You know, I'd always try and reframe, even if we're giving them bad news, into like, let's make it a positive. Like, okay, your website is down, but don't worry, like, we've got this, it'll be solved in like 2 hours. These things happen, you're not the only one. So I'd always try and be like, we just need them to have a good experience with us. I think that was just like trying to be good customer service. I never thought about like the bigger
Never thought it would make me cry 5 years later on a podcast.
No.
But that's actually a really good point. Like, if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, how can I be bringing micro levels of purpose into my working day? Perhaps elevating your customer experience is going to do that. And it comes with that bonus of all the knock-on ripple effects of when you have good customer service, the referrals roll in, people talk brilliantly about you, people become your biggest fans, and you will feel good knowing that you're making someone's day better, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're being a kind and positive impact on someone. Like, I remember when we used to work together in the copywriting sense, and we would have monthly chats, and you said that you would always leave the call feeling like energized and positive after our interactions. And you giving me that feedback made me feel purposeful. It made me feel so good that I was like lifting your day as part of my service, right?
Yeah. And I think that's also what led to us working together, right? Because we're both working really in isolation. And so I think this was a byproduct. This podcast was almost like a byproduct of us like living how we want to live. yeah, it became a byproduct of how we wanted to live. It's like, we don't want to feel lonely. We want to feel connected. And so we started to get on these accountability calls that then gave space and gave birth to these ideas for new projects we want to launch, new programs, and this space where we want to share these conversations with you guys because we think some of them are like really juicy.
You said something really interesting there where you said it came from being a byproduct of how we wanted to live. Like, let's unpack that a little bit. Like, what do you mean by that? And how can someone listening to that, how could they dive into that more to help them find their purpose?
Yeah. So, okay, we know that, like me and you, when we would talk, we know that we wanted to feel inspired by our work. And when we started chatting more frequently, it was at a time where we weren't, right? Where maybe that purpose, that fulfillment was lacking. And it was through actually being present with each other through that pain and digging deeper together and that connection with each other that we ended up finding it, right?
Right? Yeah.
Like, it's not like we were on a brainstorm together being like, Delia, okay, so what's your purpose now? It was more like, okay, what do we actually want? We want to have fun working. We want to follow the inspiration. We want to be creative. We want to have a space where we creatively express ourselves. We want to make enough money so that we can keep providing for our families, but also taking fun trips together. Like, you just came over this weekend to Portugal. It was so much fun. And it was through like just getting clear on like what lights us up. How do we want to live? What do we want like our work week to feel like, that then it almost seems like purpose found us.
Yes. Oh my God, that is it. I think you have just cracked the code to purpose.
Like, so is it found then?
Yeah.
Is it built? Is it found? Or is it a trap? Like, because honestly, like with this podcast, I think we will get more value out of being present with each other in these conversations than measuring how many people are listening to it and things like that.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, 100%. Although if you are listening, please subscribe because we do want to know that you're interested. But 100% agreed. Like, so what you just said there, I think you really hit the nail on the head. And I just want to repeat it because I feel like it was just so valuable. Maybe this boils down to one question, which you just said, which is like, what do you want your life to feel like? And what do you want to do? And what if you just start doing all those things and following that thread and seeing what comes next? Because you and I followed a thread, so it's like you're tapping into, what are my struggles and challenges right now? What am I not enjoying? What do I want my life to feel like? And what do I need to do to get there? If I'm currently at A and I want to get to B, and B is a feeling and it's what I want my life to look like, what do I need to do to get there? Because the other thing, like, so you and I got there because we both were feeling a little bit at that moment, a bit, what's the word? Like, I don't want to say we were feeling unfulfilled, but I think we both felt a little bit stuck. And we just needed a bit more motivation. So we started doing more and more check-ins on WhatsApp and co-working sessions on Zoom because we just knew that we needed to feel the energy of each other, right? And so it was like knowing that we needed to feel that. And then that, that then led to us creating a challenge together, creating this podcast together. And so sometimes you just have to like a dog, right? That's sniffing a trail. You just need to keep following your nose and
following your curiosity.
Follow your curiosity and your desires. And the other piece I would say on purpose as well is like, we're obviously focusing here about finding purpose in work, but so much purpose and fulfillment can be found outside of work too. And I feel like we need a moment on that because there are people who say, okay, my work is not particularly purpose driven. It's a job. It brings money in and it gives me the money and the time to have a purpose-filled life outside of work. And that's okay too, right? And I think another, we've talked before about me doing improvisation classes at the moment, but I just had this feeling that I needed to be doing improv classes and it just kept niggling away at me that I should be doing it. I don't really know where it came from. So I just did it. I just signed up to them. And it is making me now feel so excited. And I am using these skills that I'm learning in improv in other areas of my life. And it's helping me share my truth in a more confident way and really not hold back from what I truly think and believe. And it's helping me worry less about what people think of me. And all of that feeds into my purpose. Because I'm really feeling at the moment that I'm helping people discover their voice and speak their truth. That's where a lot of my purpose is lying at the moment. And funnily enough, doing improv classes, which I just had this hunch to do, are helping me embody the work that I want to help others do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
was like such a random thing. Like, it's like what you said, like, we didn't sit down and be like, okay, what's your purpose? I didn't go to improv classes thinking it might help me tap in deeper to my purpose.
Yeah.
But I followed the trail of what do I want my life to feel like?
Yeah. I love that. And if you're like listening to this and you're like, okay, but like my job is being a copywriter and my job is being a designer and I do want to find fulfillment in that since I'm not going to change it anytime soon. I think one piece, and we shared about like a project we worked together on, can be like connecting deeply with the client. And okay, so it's twofold. If you connect deeply with the client and you understand the ripple effect that your work is going to have on either their business, their life, that can give you a sense of like connection, fulfillment from it, but also like choosing the right clients, right? Because like we've had clients that have asked us to create websites for which our values were totally not aligned. And that would have sucked all the passion and fulfillment out of the work. And so it's being able to say no to that, because that can have a really negative spiral effect of like just making you start to resent the work. And then you really can't find purpose in it, right? If you're like designing or copywriting or like coaching someone who's out there doing harm in the world according to your values, then there's no way to feel fulfillment from that, right? But we recently worked on a project that you might be like, wait, how do you find fulfillment in that? For a hair salon and spa. And when you told me you had a copywriting client for a hair salon and spa, I thought, oh, fun. And I had this like hour and a half conversation with her on our first sales call. And I was like, one, I love this woman. She's so inspirational. She's in her 70s and she's done so much with her life. And two, like you helped her uncover that her like unique angle on the salon was that it was pro-aging because she got fired from a salon for being too old.
Mad, isn't it?
Right. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm behind that too. Like, I love that you want to build an inclusive space where people don't feel like they're too old to be there and it's pro-aging. And then three, she was like, I really like, I want to retire, but I want to make this business like desirable for my kids to take over. And so I want to give it like a modern, luxurious look and feel, help the brand leave like a nice like legacy behind. And I could get behind all of those things. And as I was working on it, and I felt so connected to her and her desires and like the legacy she wanted to leave behind that it did make a seeming like a simple project feel really meaningful.
Yes. Oh, I agree 100%. And, when it feels meaningful, it sparks creativity, right? Because when I was working on that project, doing the messaging for her, the brief was to write a couple of pages and work out her messaging and her positioning. And we did that. But because I felt so connected to her purpose and mission, we were coming up with alternative ways of talking about wrinkles, and we were calling, like crow's feet, we were calling them like your joy lines, and like, so like you're kind of getting into a more creative space. And then I was like, oh my gosh, we should come up with messaging ideas for the salon mirrors, and that you could like write in like white pens on the mirrors, like all these like really positive messages about getting older and stepping into wisdom. And so then I just like got into this creative brainstorm coming up with ideas, but I lost myself in that. And it was pure joy. And, ended up giving her so much that wasn't even included in the brief, just because it came from a place of like creativity connected to purpose.
Yeah, I love that. So what questions would you ask your clients when you're doing their positioning and trying to find their purpose?
Yeah, so there's lots of questions I would ask them. A lot of them are connected to values. So if you can really tap into understanding your values better, then you're going to be able to get closer to your purpose, I think. So one question I love asking is like, what is the one thing that you do that gives you energy? Like, how do you like to spend your time? How do you like to spend your money as well? Because that will reveal something about you. You know, when I answered that question, for me, it was like, I have a shameless, bottomless fund, which shouldn't be bottomless, for books and learning, right? So then that revealed like the value of growth for me as a value, which then it's not a surprise that I'm finding working with clients that are helping others grow purposeful. So you can see how it all like links, right? What is it that really pisses you off?
I was going to ask if you asked that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what is it about your industry, about the people you work with that really, really pisses you off? You know, if you had to stand up tomorrow on a soapbox in Hyde Park, what would you talk about? You know, what is the stuff as well? This is probably getting a bit into messaging, but it is all connected. Like, what's the stuff that you're really thinking and you're not saying, and that your people are really thinking and not saying? Because there's stuff in there to unpack as well. So it's like, it's all a thread to unpack who you really are at your core and what your values really are, and where you seek joy and enjoyment. And all of this just contributes to finding your purpose.
I love that. And so as you were saying that, I was reflecting back to the question, and I'm like, okay, well, our values with this podcast and our purpose to this podcast is to inspire you to live an unapologetic life, to like design a business around the life that you want to live. And so to this particular listener, and to anyone who's also feeling frustrated at work, I wonder if there are clues there in the frustration. Like, what in particular is frustrating you? Is it the client? Is it the project? Is it the tool? Is it the work that is no longer aligned with the season of life? Or are you frustrated with the size of the impact? Because I think that's the most dangerous one, is like, I'm not making a big enough impact, and focusing on like numbers and things that it's more like our ego side, would you say?
Yes, 100%. Because the ego wants big numbers and stats and to feel like I'm having this huge impact. 100%. And like you said, when you had those numbers, it didn't feel as fulfilling as having that one-to-one client where maybe you're even delivering bad news, but you're doing it in a way that will hopefully feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like it comes back to connection, right? Like, we're in a really disconnected world right now. Like, we're super connected, but we're not. Like, we're not deeply connected. Like, we're just like superficially connected.
Yeah.
And I think that if we maybe spend more time being present and mindful and trying to go deeper with the connections that you do have, with the connections to your work or your source of inspirations for your work, or, like an example is like, if you're a designer, you go on Pinterest, you're inundated with so much stuff. Whereas if you go to an exhibition and you're there and you're present and you're in that space, and maybe you only look at 10 images versus 1,000 in an hour, but you're more connected, and more likely you'll have more ideas from that space than just consuming a lot.
100%. And I think as well, while you're asking yourself these questions about frustration, which I think is so important, trying to understand the root cause of that frustration, also be asking yourself, what is it that's lighting you up? So when you do have a project that the hours seem to fly by and you just realize a whole day has passed and you've been deep in flow, or you just get off a call and you just got that, like, your belly's kind of on fire and you're feeling really fabulous feeling. Be curious about that. Like, and be asking yourself, what is it about that particular project, that particular client, that it could be how you were working as well, like how you planned your day. Like, so many things feed into this. So I feel like there's so much like we've talked about in this episode, but I feel like being curious is such a key part of finding purpose, right? Both curious about your frustrations, your joy, your values, what sets you alive, what you want your life to feel like, what you want it to look like, and following the trail like a hungry dog.
Yeah. And another thing I'll say is that like running a business, having the responsibility to make an income, to pay other people, or to bring home that income from your own business, which is not as predictable as a salary, is not all fun and games. Like, don't listen to this episode and think we're like enjoying all aspects of our business over here. What we're doing is, if you think of it as a scale, we're just putting more weight on the joy scale to compensate for all the weight of the responsibility scale and the things that we don't like, right? Because I don't like doing business admin. I don't like looking at the books. I don't like at the end of the month collecting all our receipts and seeing how much did we spend on what, and like doing payroll and like thinking about where we're going to invest the money and all of the and the ups and downs of revenue, right? And the anxiety it can bring. Like all of that is heavy. It does not bring me passion. It does not bring me joy. It does not bring me fulfillment, but it comes as part of being a business owner, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm looking to do more actively now is like, okay, well, here's the other bucket. If you're listening, then think of like the scales, right? So on one side is like the things that weigh you down. And also in your personal life, there will be things that you can't control. There will always be something bad. Hopefully not, but you know, along our life, there will be bad things that will happen that are out of our control. And so it's about like, okay, if that's on one side of the scale, the bad, the heavy, the things you have to do, but you don't like to do, then put more things on the other side of the scale. And that can come from outside of work. That can come from micro interactions inside of work. Maybe that's like an interaction with your coworker, or like a relationship with a service provider that you collaborate with for your clients. You know, like try and like find how can you fill that bucket daily. Maybe it's like routines that you bring into your life, new hobbies that you try, like trying to be more present, less on your phone, and like more thinking like, who can I cheer up today, or who can cheer me up as well? Like if you're having a bad day, who can I reach out to chat that will like lift my spirits? I think it's also about that.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to say one final thought.
Okay.
Which is coming back to, why does finding your purpose matter? And I think one reason why it matters and helps in entrepreneurship is it gives you a fuel that is probably more powerful than any other fuel you can have for your business. So in those months where you are having a quiet month and you're worrying about business, or in those months where you're like, what am I going to do in my marketing? If your work feels purposeful, then I think it comes back to the idea of like the creativity comes, the creativity flows, the drive increases, and it is so much easier to push through those harder moments, like that bucket you said on the one side of your scale where you've got those harder moments. It can help with those. It helps you push through them, which is, I guess, just a point on why finding a purpose can help, aside from feeling good, right?
And just know that your purpose changes with your seasons, right? Like Arthur Brooks says this. In his books. And you might be in a season where, or like I found myself in a season where like my purpose right now, I just want to like focus on being the best mother I can be. And who cares about what my purpose is at work? Like that's my purpose now.
Yeah.
And it can change with seasons, and like get what you're saying. Like I get that it's good to find a purpose to fuel the work, but I know that sometimes as well that's not possible.
Yeah.
And so it's to find purpose in other things as well.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
I think there's 100%. Like both sides. I mean, ideally you do have work that feels purposeful and that lights a fire under your belly, but sometimes you have to like wait until it comes and like feel that joy and like feel connected and then let it find you.
100%. And if you're earning more in what you're doing, but it's not giving you purpose, and then you're able to use that money to have a more purpose-filled life, awesome, right? So many different ways we can find purpose. It's not
this
linear.
Is where like the overwhelm of choice, I think, can like get in the way. Yeah. And that's why now, like I've been even recently when we were like, okay, what do we focus on next? Because like we have so many ideas and we have the freedom to choose what do we create next for our community. And I told you, like, follow the energy, like which one right now is like giving you more energy when you think about starting work on this idea or this idea or this idea.
Yeah. I think we should do a whole episode on this.
Okay.
Because
let's keep
this
up for the next one.
Yeah, let's do it. If you want to know more about this, keep listening, because I feel there's so much to unpack with this.
Yeah. Okay. But so for purpose, it's not a destination, but a byproduct of how you live.
Yes, nailed it, Joanna. You've nailed it. I love it. And if you're listening, I hope that you've got something from this and that it has helped you think about purpose in a different way, right? And be unapologetic about how you find it and apply it in your life. And come and drop us a message on Instagram if you have discovered anything from this episode. We would love to hear from you.
Or even if there's a follow-up question, we can cover it on a next episode.
Please.
We'll see you next week.
Bye for now.
That's it for this week. If you enjoyed this episode or if something here landed for you, share it with a friend.
Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss next week's episode.
And if you can, please leave us a review. It really helps new people find us.
See you next time.